Good evening. And this is Tom Little here. I am a member of the Diocesan Canons Committee. I also serve as chancellor to the bishop and to the diocese. The other members of the Canons Committee are Steve Marshall, the chair, Lindsay Huddle, the Reverend Bram Kranichfeld, and the Reverend Walter Brownridge. And we have had plenty of work to do in the last month or so because we have a series of proposed canon changes to the diocesan canons that we've been working on together with the groups who have brought them to us, who have proposed them. And we have done our diligence and done our research and have come to a consensus that we think accurately reflects the intention of the proposers. And these canon changes are being proposed by the Canons Committee itself. And one of the reasons for that is that under our existing canons, if the Canons Committee itself is proposing a canonical change and the convention agrees and approves it, the canonical change will go into effect right away. Whereas under our canons, if someone else, delegate to convention or another diocesan body, proposes it and convention approves it, it has to lay over for 1 year and has to be reapproved by the convention that following year. So for these canonical changes, the consensus is that these are in good shape and they're important and they should go into effect when we adjourn our 2025 diocesan convention. And the text of these proposals is available to you on the website and in your other resource materials as someone who will be attending convention. I'll start with an overview of what we are calling canonical amendments to the Thrive canon changes. Those were changes that were very substantial and made in 2022. We call them Thrive changes because there was a intensive and fairly lengthy study task force known as Thrive, which recommended those changes to different parts of our diocesan governance, the various governing bodies and their relationships to one another and to convention. We made some very important corrections to portions of those changes at the 2023 convention. And importantly, when we adopted the Thrive changes in 2022, we included a sunset on all of those changes. And by sunset, I mean that they were expressly going to go out of existence and revert to the prior version of the canons at the end of 2025, unless the convention took further action. And the purpose for that was to make sure that we maintained focus on those changes, paid attention to how well they were working or what needed to be adjusted for them to work as intended. So one of the changes I'll be talking about and that you'll hear more about at the pre-convention hearing and at convention is a change to that sunset provision, which is in the current Canon 38. If we don't change that sunset provision, then all of those changes that we do want to keep would disappear, and we'd have to start all over with them. So that's the so-called Thrive canon changes. Those are changes to canons 6.1, 15.3, 18, 27, and 29E and 38. The next set of proposals are being referred to as the distressed congregation proposed canonical changes. These look at existing canons that deal with how a congregation can come into existence, either as a mission or as a parish, and what can happen during the lifetime of a mission or a parish, including how it could stop being a mission or a parish. The current canons don't go into, I guess we've learned, sufficient detail in that respect, and a lot of, I think, good work has been done to describe ways that parishes and congregations, missions in distress can go through a process, a renewal process or a reinvigoration process to see if they can become more vibrant and active and successful. They deal with how a mission is established, how a mission can become a parish, or ultimately how a mission may be dissolved. They deal with how a parish in distress could be placed under review for reinvigoration and renewal, how it might be transformed into a mission status, and the Canon proposal for those changes goes into considerable fine detail about all of that. And those are revisions to Canons 13, 14, 15, and 15A. The next grouping of proposed canon changes is to Canon 29C. Canon 29C is an existing canon that establishes the Rock Point Commons Board, which has been in place for some time now as a very active board. Its purview is over the lands and the various functions at Rock Point. It functions in concert with or in collaboration with the other diocesan entities at Rock Point, being the Rock Point School, the diocese itself, the diocesan offices, the bishop's house, and all the trails and other amenities out at Rock Point. And through a long discernment process, the Rock Point Commons Board came to some conclusions about how to restructure and describe in a new way how it is going to be structured and governed. And so the proposal is to delete or repeal the existing Canon 29C and replace it with an entirely new Canon 29C, which including reorganizing and redescribing how the Rock Point Commons Board would function, and it will be as a nonprofit corporation. It introduces the stewardship covenant concept. There would be a Rock Point Commons Stewardship Council, which would be comprised of the Rock Point School, the Rock Point Commons, and the diocese, which would involve collaborations with the trustees of the diocese, with Bishop Shannon, and so forth. The stewardship covenant would look closely at how best to achieve the goals for the lands and amenities and resources at Rock Point. It would make recommendations to Executive Council and to the bishop for policies governing those lands. It would work in collaboration as well with the holder of the permanent covenant on the land that is preserving it from development. There would be representatives from that group who would be non-voting members of this effort. The stewardship covenant would be able to recommend those policies, including assessments on the members of the covenant group to make monetary contributions to further the efforts of the work at Rock Point. Together with 29C, there is an addendum that you will see that makes changes throughout all of the canons. So where the canons currently refer to the Rock Point Commons Board, it would now, if this is adopted, refer to Rock Point Commons Incorporated as a nonprofit corporation. So that's all that is going on in that one. These are very detailed changes, however, and this has been my summary of the proposals from the Canons Committee for canonical changes. Will be available for questions and comments. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you at convention.